Saudi Arabia is taking over the sport of boxing. So we all know a lot about what Saudi Arabia has been getting up to in terms of the sport of boxing. They've literally been making all the biggest fights happen in the sport like it's nothing. Fights we thought would have never ever got made have all been made pretty much in the last 2 years. From Usyk versus Joshua 2, Tyson Fury Usyk 1 and soon to be 2, Tyson Fury Ngannou, AJ Ngannou, Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol. Not to mention he also put 2 of the top 5 biggest heavyweights in the world on the same card on the same night. If you don't know, that was the Day of Reckoning card featuring Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, which is something we probably would have never seen before. And this man is responsible for it all. Who is he though? And what has he done? Well, he is none other than Turki Alalshikh, and he is on a mission to completely buy out the sport of boxing and take over completely, with some pretty crazy plans he has. But how did we get here in the first place? Well, this all started a few years ago when Anthony Joshua suffered his first loss to Andy Ruiz, which was a huge upset to everyone. When the rematch was scheduled, obviously it was going to do huge numbers. However, we were all in huge shock when it was announced in Saudi Arabia. And it was said that Saudi Arabia paid nearly $40 million approximately to have this fight hosted in their home country, in their new stadium in Diriyah. And of course the event was huge, with over 1.5 million pay-per-view buys in the UK and 1.8 million live DAZN viewers worldwide. And since then, Saudi has consistently put up huge money for these fights to be made. So who is Turki Alalshikh and what's his deal? Well, he's a Saudi Arabian advisor at the royal court under the rank of minister and the current chairman of the General Entertainment Authority, essentially meaning he's the head of all the entertainment stuff in Saudi Arabia. And he's actually a huge boxing fan. The problem to him was that boxing was following its old school ways and was getting worse and worse, stating that in the 70s and 80s it was the most watched sport in the world. However, now it's 14th. Something went wrong in the last 20 years, he thinks, and I totally agree. His problem was that there was too many belts. Fights weren't getting made because of negotiations between too many promoters, or when big fights do get made, they're way past their prime. For example, Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather was a fight that should have happened many years prior. However, they were both way too old when the fight actually got made. And again, he's completely spot on with that. I think he feels the same way as all of us upset boxing fans that just want to see big fights, but the difference is he can make it happen. Why? Because he's a multi-billionaire. It also seems he's pretty much in charge of this whole Riyadh season thing, which, if you don't know what it is, it's essentially a huge annual event where Saudi hosts some of the biggest events and stars in the world and invites them all to come through, basically doing the same thing he did with boxing with many other sports, making the biggest events in the world happen in Saudi Arabia. He brought a huge tennis tournament with all the biggest players in the world. He also got Lionel Messi's team and Cristiano Ronaldo's team to face off, and even some of the most famous performers in the world showing their faces. Basically just bringing the biggest icons in the world to come and showcase their talents in Saudi Arabia. And what drives them there, you may ask? Obviously the huge paychecks they'll be getting, because let's be real, Saudi Arabia in the past has been in a lot of controversy, and I'm not really going to dive into those things because I'm not a politician and I'm not too concerned about that. But if you want to know what I'm on about specifically, go ahead and do your own research. But a lot of those controversies can be covered up by money, unfortunate as it is. And what Saudi's goal is to do is to make them the capital of not just the boxing world, but the sports world. But why? Why do they want to do that? Well, a lot of rumors, and I'm not necessarily saying this is true, but they have essentially been accused of sportswashing. Sportswashing is a term used to describe the way of using sports to improve tarnished reputations and hide unethical conduct. And when this was brought up to one of the leaders, I believe, he essentially shrugged it off, said he didn't care about being accused of sportswashing, which honestly I gotta respect it.
Well, if it's sportswashing gonna increase my GDP by 1%, and then I will continue doing sport washing.
But regardless, whether they are sports washing or aren't sports washing, it doesn't really matter, because they're successful in their mission, and quite frankly, they're taking sports and entertainment to the next level. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to talk politics, I'm here to talk boxing. But well, what does this mean for boxing? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What will the future look like if Saudi Arabia continues going the way that it's going? Well, Turki Alalshikh's biggest plan is to change boxing to kind of make it seem similar to the same way that the UFC is ran, putting all the promoters in one, not to mention for approximately $5 billion he plans to do this for, and essentially have just one league for boxing, just how the UFC is ran. ran, he would create a league with 12 weight divisions and the top 20 fighters from each weight division, and he would make all of the top fighters fight each other, and the fighters would have no say because there would be no controversies between promoters. There wouldn't be too many problems in the negotiation stage because, let's be honest, so many of these big fights do not get made because of negotiations or a price isn't right. And we know with Saudi Arabia, the price is always right. They aren't afraid to put up the right amount of money and quite frankly put up huge paychecks to these fighters. And from what it seems, they're not bothered about how much it costs. They just want these huge fights to happen, and I'm all for it. So yeah, for the most part, this could be a very good thing. However, on the flip side, it could be super detrimental to promotional companies if it did carry through. But here's the question: is Saudi good for the sport of boxing as a whole? As a whole, yes. He's making these huge fights happen. He's bringing entertainment to the sport of boxing, and it's like nothing we've ever seen before. He's modernizing it, and he's even applauded the UFC for the way they run things and said that boxing should be ran in the same way. And I completely agree. And there's a reason that UFC has started to take over boxing in the last few years, and that's because they make fights happen. They're all under one promotional company, so there's no back and forth with negotiations. Fights just get made, and very often we'll see multiple huge world title fights all on the same card. And that's what I think Turki Alalshikh wants to aim for with boxing. And like I said, if you haven't seen anything from the Riyadh season, let's just say they go all out on entertainment. They bring in huge artists, dancers, performers, and in a way I kind of like it. Not to mention, if we're being honest, a lot of these big fights probably wouldn't have happened without Turki Alalshikh. Turki is probably responsible for a lot of these big fights happening, so realistically he is fixing the biggest problem we've had in boxing over the last 20 years, the best not fighting the best. However, it may come with some repercussions if it's not carefully implemented. If they completely take over and turn it into the Turkey combat sports show where he's getting all of his circus clowns to put on shows, it could be kind of bad. So like I said, this could either go very good or very bad. For example, with golf, I'm not sure if it was him, but in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season, a whole new tournament league was created for golf, which basically split the biggest golfers into two different tournaments, which basically messed up the whole sport. And if the same thing happened with boxing, it could be very bad. However, I don't think that's going to happen. It seems he's done an amazing job so far, and honestly, I'm very glad he's in the sport and is making these huge fights happen, because it's something we wanted for the last however many years, and it's finally happening. But what do you guys think of Saudi Arabia's impact on boxing and Turki Alalshikh? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What could it look like in the future? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload. Anyways, that'll be all. I'll catch you in the next one.